Knitters, welcome to episode 105 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am your host, Devin AT. You can find me online at knittymcpurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly over on Instagram. And if you want to email me, I'm Devin at knittymcpurly.com. All that's below. I actually recorded this part of the video already, and then I think I accidentally deleted it. So I can't remember what I said that I deleted. I don't know. Happy first Sunday of Advent. This Thursday is December 1st, and we're going to be starting our Advent calendars. That is going to be super, super awesome. Lots of people have downloaded their first clue, so if you haven't done that yet, go do it. Hi, knitters. I accidentally deleted the part where I talked about my mug and my sweatshirt. Like I said, I also deleted the part where I said I wasn't feeling very well. So I'm trying to edit this podcast, and I'm in bed, and I'm drinking out of my amazing mug. It says knit one, pray one, and it has yarn and a little teacup and a heart, and it's just so cute. This is from Colby's Little Flowers, and I'm also, as a part of my pajamas, wearing my Knit, Pray, Love sweatshirt. But you can go get those from her shop. She's Colby's Little Flowers on Instagram. And there's a code Knitty10. And here's Charlotte.
Hi.
So here's a fun little intimate look into our lives. All right. Bye, knitters. Here's the rest of the podcast. It's nice to have your first clue ready to go so that you can have your needles ready and all of your supplies and whatnot. So if you have an Advent calendar and you're joining us on Thursday, please log in and download your first clue. I forgot to mention how gray and dreary it is today. A small handful of times I am recording a day in advance, but today it is Sunday morning. And so I'm coming to you from the dreary grayness that is Northern Virginia this morning. Okay, progress and shop news. First thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I did not have high expectations for this Black Friday because prices are high and the economy is not great. And I just didn't have high expectations. I just thought, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to throw everything I can out and, see what people like. And you guys shopped my sale. Thank you so, so much. As a small business, I help to support my family on this small business. And you guys ordering your Christmas gifts, I had husbands ordering, which is super awesome. Not just the wives ordering and putting it under the tree. That's how things go in my house. And that's fine. That's fine. But when husbands order, that's a whole nother level of awesome. It was just great. Thank you so, so much. As of right now, almost every order has shipped, and that includes pre-orders. I got those done and got them out quick because I just really wanted those things out to you. I have had a few orders come in at the last minute, or some things that are, just still in the process, pre-orders that haven't gone out yet, but those will go out tomorrow, Monday, because the post office was closed on Friday. I wasn't sure if it was, so I was able to ship out a bunch Saturday morning. I thought I could do it Friday, but they were closed. But anyway, it doesn't matter. They're all out now, mostly. But the sale does run through tomorrow at midnight. So 20% off with code BF22. That's Black Friday 22, which is the year. 20% off everything, including pre-orders. If you want to pre-order a sweater quantity of yarn, you absolutely can do that. Or, just if I don't have that particular thing that you want in stock, I can absolutely pre-order that for you. No problem at all. If I have the bare yarn in stock, I'll have it out to you fairly quickly. If I don't, it could take up to 2 weeks, but probably not. I want to get those things moving on out. I also have a Christmas nativity. Oh, let me show you Mary first. I knit this up a few years ago, and I wanted to show you so you can kind of see the size. But, oh, Mary's hair is unbraided. Mary's hair is worked in 3 pieces so that you can do a braid. You just kind of braid it like that, and then you can put like a little piece of yarn. I think at one point there was a piece of yarn there, but children have unbraided it so that they could rebraid it. But my Christmas nativity has been in the shop for a few years, and it is Mary, and she has a blue cloak with a loop with a button. And when I was designing these, when you are designing people, you really have to be careful with faces, because if they don't look the way you want them to look, you've kind of ruined your whole thing that you have going. So I went faceless with my nativity. So this is Mary, and here we have Joseph. So Joseph's cloak is a little bit different from Mary's. His just has this kind of I-cord thing here. And I use scraps, basically. So both of them, their cloak is yarn held together. And that's why there's a bit of a halo, because there's mohair in there. But I was thinking how fun it would be to have a kit. I don't have one, and that's not going to happen this year. But in a future year, that would be really awesome. Joseph is bald, and he has a beard. That's him. And then his cloak goes right over him like that. So there's Joseph, and there is Mary. And baby Jesus has a little blanket. But it's funny, Charlotte pulled him out today, and she was like, Mom, where are his hands and his arms? And I'm like, well, you know, when it's a baby, well, none of them actually have hands and arms. They're just bodies. But babies are always swaddled. I think I might have designed him first. But he has a little halo here, which I have used. Can't remember what I used for this. Like I said, it was scraps at the time. But it definitely has mohair in it, which gives it a halo too. And then there are directions for this blanket. I'm trying to remember exactly how it went. Yeah, so he gets kind of swaddled there. And then his blanket will button so that he will stay swaddled. A few years ago, I got a stable-like thing. I'll put pictures up here from Hobby Lobby. I don't know if they still have that over there, but they might. It's a stable for a nativity, and my dad actually made these little mangers that I sold in my shop one year. But I still have mine, and it's a part of my little set that we just pulled out of the basement to put up for Christmas. But anyway, this is a knitting pattern that you can get from my store. I believe it is $6, but you can get it for 20% off if you buy it before the end of the day on Monday. Also, you know, subscribe to my newsletter, because newsletter people always have a code that they can use to get 10% off. And there might be other deals that come up that you only hear about on the newsletter. So anyway, also in my shop, there's the Allotrope hat kit. They've almost all sold out, but I do have a couple more in this color left because I made the most in this color. Allotrope hat kits. There are sweater patterns. Everything's 20% off. Sock patterns, hat patterns, hand balm, wool wash. You can go get all of these things for 20% off through Monday, which is, let's see, November 28th at midnight. So that's the shop update and the sale. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. On the front of my personal knitting, like I have been working a lot this past week, pretty much all the time, but I would come to a point in the day where I just needed to sit down and let my brain kind of rest and my body, like just let everything kind of rest. And so I have been working on this. And like I said, you know, don't get your hopes up. But you really can get your hopes up. So this is a sweater that I started last weekend, and it is a round yoke. And so my idea was to have these 2 colors be part of the yoke, and I may have them again in the sweater. But then we're gonna go into the body of the sweater, which is, so this is Beryl and Trinket, and the body of the sweater is gonna be in Frost. I just really like these 3 colors together. And this is the Athens alpaca yarn, which is a sport weight. It is amazing. I was surprised. Oh, here, I separated for the sleeves this morning so you can kind of see. There, we've got a little bit of a better view there. I was surprised that more people didn't buy it in my shop update, but it is a sport weight. And if you don't have a sport project in mind, you could be like, well, what am I going to make with it? So I hope that this will be a great pattern when it comes out. So this pattern and the Vesper sweater will be out in the springtime. I just, with the Lent calendar coming up and, our Advent calendar that we're starting on Thursday and the Lent calendar coming up and the retreat, I don't have time to write these patterns right now. I'm just kind of keeping good notes, but I will have them out come the springtime. So, but this base is amazing. Like I said, it reminds me of the Fiber Company's Road to China Light. And if you have ever felt that, you know how amazing it is. And it's a lot cheaper. I knew that Road to China Light was expensive because I had bought it at my local yarn store a couple of years ago. But until last week when I looked it up, I didn't quite know how expensive it was. For a 50-gram skein, it's $20. And for, this, you get 100 grams for $28. So instead of $40 for 100 grams, it's $28. And in my humble opinion, even though the fiber content is not exactly the same between the two, they feel the same. And I was surprised that Road to China Light is also a sport weight. I didn't realize that it was. I feel like the Road to China might be a DK and the Road to China Light is the sport weight. So interesting. I don't know why that is. I don't know. But anyway, I don't have a name idea for this. However, when I designed the chart, which I don't have up here with me, do I? No, it's in my purse. I was watching with my kids the movie Ben-Hur. So possibly a Ben-Hur reference would be good. It's kind of awesome, isn't it? I think it's kind of amazing. It was super fun. But at the same time, while I really enjoyed, let's see, this is the back. You can see the short rows in the back of the neck there. And so this is the front. While I enjoyed working the color work, I'm excited to get on to the body of the sweater, which is going to be just plain stockinette. At least until the bottom. I might do some more color work on the bottom. I might do some color work at the wrists. We'll see. I don't know. It's just kind of, I'm winging it. And that's the most fun way to design for me. I was thinking I'm going to have a class at the retreat about designing sweater patterns and how to do it, like how to go from an idea in your head or a store-bought sweater, because that's 2 different things, and to come to a knitting pattern design. So this one came from my head, but ones like my Audrey sweater were designed not like an exact copy, but like the store-bought sweater was a jumping off place for me to design the Audrey sweater. And so that's, it's 2 different starting places, but either way, in the end, you get a sweater that you like. So that's a fun thing to do. But for this one, I'm kind of winging it, and I love it so far. And the beauty of the top-down sweater is the ability to wing it, because you can constantly try it on. And then after that, it's just a matter of extrapolating it to different sizes. And that's also really fun. It's just a super fun process. I really enjoy it. One thing I wanted to show you, I don't really have a part of my podcast where this makes the most sense, so I'm just going to put it in here, is that I was gifted an advent calendar. It was kind of a huge surprise and totally amazing. Yes, so this is from Mystery Mouse Yarn. Her name is Holly Armstrong, who is behind Mystery Mouse. She is on Instagram. I think she's Mystery Mouse. If you type in Mystery Mouse Yarn, you'll find her. I'm not exactly sure what her Instagram is, but I'll put all that stuff below. She's on Etsy, and she has a podcast, which is probably called the Mystery Mouse Podcast. But she's delightful. Like, she just talks, and I just think I want to sit down and talk to her and be her best friend. And she very, very kindly sent me one of her advent calendars. It's so amazing. So I'm not going to give away any surprises in case you also got one of her advent calendars, but I'm just going to show you, like, I opened the box. I'm just going to show you what you see when you open the box. So if you don't want to see that, then by all means, you know, fast forward through this part. But I'm not going to give away any surprises. But her packaging is top tier, like next level. She did such a great job in packaging. So the theme of this advent calendar is Sherlock Holmes, homes for the holidays. So she has this kind of 19th century newspaper advertisement tissue paper in there on the top, which is just fabulous. There is a little blurb about what to do. You know, what does she say? It's about, there's a pattern in here, which I love, and a hashtag to use if you want to knit the pattern and you want to post pictures. And she says if you want a digital copy of the pattern, you can email her for that. But she has included a paper copy. It doesn't have any pattern on it, it's just like details. But it's several pages, and it's in like a little page protector here. But, oh my gosh, it's so cute. So each day is wrapped up in this adorable packaging. And I believe there are 12. Let me see. 8. I think that there are 12 of these, and I want to say, because I remember when she came out with it, I want to say that there's 20 grams of yarn in each day, which, you know, this kind of makes sense because, I mean, you know, in my advent calendar, you have one every day, but it's less yarn. So I guess it really ends up being about the same, except at the end, this fabulously packaged little yarn here. It says, do not open until December 25th. And in here is a full skein. I did this too last year. I did a full skein on the 25th. This year, my designs didn't work out with the pattern. But I love it. Like, it's just beautiful. And now I've had my paws in there, so it's a little bit wonky now that I've messed with it, but it just looks so pretty. Like, it's just so beautifully packaged. She did such a good job, and it was so nice of her to send me one. Like, just so nice. So that was super exciting. I'm very pumped about that, and I can't wait till Thursday where I can open my own little surprise advent calendar. Because while my advent calendar is also happening that day, it is not a surprise to me. So I am excited about that. Thank you so much, Holly. Go follow Holly. Go check her out. She is new to the business, but she's got a great start, and she's coming to the retreat, and I cannot wait to meet her. And it's going to be really fun. Okay, topic of the week. So this week I got an amazing knitting story. Two things about it. The first thing is that she brought up the topic of Irish cottage knitting. And when I read this, I thought, well, that's got to be what we talk about this week. So we're absolutely going to do that. But the second thing is that she thought her story wasn't interesting. And I want you, when you hear this amazing story, to know that she thought this wasn't interesting. And when I read it, my first thought was, Judy, you've been holding out on me. Like, this is a great story. Why did it take you so long to send it to me? So probably you, podcast watcher, have a great story too. Whether it's about learning to knit, or somebody in your life who knit, or somebody who you knit something for, or some crazy thing that happened that was just so weird or funny or adorable or whatever, you have a knitting story too. So if you would like to send it to me, I would love that, because after this one, I am out. So send me your knitting story. You can type it out. You can take a video. You can send it to me in whatever way you want, but I would love to hear it, because we tend to think of our own lives as not interesting because they happen to us, but they are interesting. So anyway, I'm not even going to go into the story yet because it's not that part of the podcast, but I just wanted to tell you that I got the idea to talk about the topic of Irish cottage knitting from Judy, who sent me a story, which I'll read in a little bit. I did not go super in depth with it. Like I said, I'm a little under the weather, so I did a very small amount of research today. I had never even heard of Irish cottage knitting until Judy mentioned it in the story. Now, basically what that is, and from what I read, there's more than one way to do it. But think of the person who tucks the needle under their arm and then knits with one stationary needle, usually a long straight needle, and one needle moving. So when you knit like that, you have the yarn in your right hand, and by keeping that one needle stationary, you can knit really fast. The only person who's, we all know, that I know of who does this is Joji Locatelli. She famously knits like this, and I did not know it was called Irish cottage knitting. It is also called lever knitting because you have that one stationary needle and it acts kind of like a lever, I guess. And it's also called pivot knitting. But basically the idea is with one needle being totally still, you can knit really, really fast. Most of the fastest knitters in the world use this method. It's a great method for knitters who knit for a living because also it reduces the strain on your hands. So if you get any kind of like a stress injury, not stress injury, but like a repetitive motion injury, like tendonitis from knitting, if you try to knit in this way, it can reduce that. So, I mean, these are two great things, speed and reduced injuries. It's so funny when you talk to lay people about knitting injuries, they're like, what? That's not real. But as knitters, we know that knitting injuries are real. If you spend a lot of time knitting, you can get a repetitive motion injury, just like golfers or tennis players or typists. A lot of us spend time in front of computers and we spend time typing, and you can get tendonitis from that. So that's real. We know about that. But if you, I don't know, like if you already have tendonitis, if it would make sense to switch to this before that was healed. I don't know about that. But I do know that this reduces strain and can reduce the occurrence of those injuries at all. So, lever knitting is a variation on English knitting in that the yarn is held in the right hand. But like I said, one needle is still and the other needle does all the work. The yarn is usually tensioned around the lower fingers of the hand, and the hand moves back and forth to form the stitches. It is a fluid movement, so that's why it cuts down on that repetitive strain. Along with speed, that is why historically it's been used by production knitters or people who knit professionally. So perhaps the most famous proponent of lever knitting is Stephanie Pearl McPhee, also known as the Yarn Harlot. She learned the method from her grandma and teaches classes on it. There are a bunch of YouTube videos that demonstrate this. It looks like Stephanie Pearl McPhee has some videos along with other people. So if you're interested in learning this, I read about, who's that Irish knitter who has the classes on Craftsy? What's her name? You're probably shouting it at the screen. I can't think of it right now. I feel like I might have it open in another tab. I forget. Anyway, she said that she has videos on it too. And the best way to learn it is by watching the videos. So Stephanie apparently has videos, in addition from showing it, she also has videos of what it looks like to you, what your hands will look like as you're doing that. So that can help you learn. But once you watch a video and see the motion, just practice it. It's like anything else, really. Watch how it's done and then do it a million times until it's super easy. I am a continental knitter myself, so I feel like it would be a big leap for me to try something like this, but I'm interested. I mean, it sounds kind of cool. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that for right now. I also don't have any knitting fantasies. Although when I was thinking about a name for this sweater, there's a double. It's like you can't knit a 1x1 color work without having a double in there somewhere. And I also have that. Is that in the back? Oh no, of course not. Nope, it's in the front. So I have this fun thing and this fun thing. And honestly, I am fine with it. Like, going back to the topic of this, I'm totally fine with it because it is a handmade sweater, and that is what makes it interesting. You're not going to find a store-bought sweater that has mistakes in it. So my approach to mistakes such as those two things, which are now jumping right out at you and you cannot miss, is to leave them and to just lean right into them. Anyway, I was thinking about what to name this sweater, and because it has so much going on, and because my friend Siobhan, who I went to college with and is currently a knitter, she is I don't think she started it yet, but she's planning on making a no frills sweater. And then today at Mass, I was sitting behind somebody who had on a store-bought sweater, but that was very similar to the no frills sweater. And I mean, I was totally paying attention to Mass, but I was also kind of thinking about the no frills sweater. And I thought I should call my sweater the frills sweater, just because it has so much going on, kind of in contrast to no frills. But then I went on Ravelry and I looked up frills sweater, and a lot of sweaters are called the frills sweater because they have literal frills. And so I came across this one that I thought was just so pretty. It is $7.50 on Ravelry. Didn't really look into the details of it, but I guess that's going to be my knitting fantasies for this week because I did think this was super awesome. All right, so here's what happened. Here is my story from Judy. This is the story she thought was uninteresting. It's amazing. She says, how I learned to knit is a little unusual, and perhaps your other viewers might find it interesting. In 1983, my husband, baby, and I moved from California to one of the 19 communes or communities that make up the city of Brussels in Belgium. Like, stop right there. That's super interesting as it is. I was 5 in 1983. So this baby is probably just a little bit younger than me. So they moved from California to Brussels in Belgium, and Brussels is made up of 19 communities. Who knew? She says, we were there with a Christian organization to help some of the small churches in Brussels, and so began language study at the University of Brussels almost immediately. Our organization also required us to find a language helper, someone with whom we could meet on a weekly basis to practice our French conversation. Little side note, Belgium has 2 official languages. This is all news to me. I didn't know this. French in the south and Flemish, which is similar to Dutch, in the north. We were learning French. The only thing I know is when I was in high school, we had a Belgian exchange student and she spoke French. So I knew that, but that's all I knew. So it seems that Judy was in charge of finding her own language helper. She asked around, and a little old lady named Paula said she would be happy to meet with me. Oh my gosh, a little old Belgian woman? Yes, that sounds amazing. But we had to have something to talk about. So she asked if I knew how to knit. Oh my gosh. When I told her that I didn't, she said, well, I'll teach you, and that is what we will talk about. My head soon spun with words that I was not learning at the university. Words like tricoter, to knit, aiguille, needles, and maille, stitches. Also, there is no specific word for knit and purl, which probably would not have struck Judy as unusual at the time because she didn't, she wasn't going from an English knowledge. She was learning it first in French. But I guess it strikes her as interesting now. Rather, Judy says, in French, you are told to knit on the right side for a knit stitch. I know it's Endroit. Of course, in French, it's probably endroit. I can't quite remember. My French is old. And to knit on the wrong side for a purl stitch, envers, like the other right side. Here, I'll confess that I felt way out of my depth. So I kind of cheated. I went to a tiny little English used bookstore that was in the loft of an old barn, like a building behind someone's house. And I bought a Learn to Knit book. I pored over the book, comparing what Paula had told me with what the book said. It was a lifesaver. With Paula's guidance, I soon proudly produced a little sweater for my baby. Wow. But what made the whole knitting adventure even more interesting was that Paula taught me how to knit in the same manner that her mother had taught her. I'm not positive, but I believe it's called lever or cottage knitting. You use straight needles, which are a little longer than US needles, and one needle is tucked into your right armpit. That holds the needle stationary, freeing your right hand to throw the yarn without having to also support the needle. I found it to be an easy and comfortable way to knit. Oddly enough, though, double-pointed needles were just as long, and one of the 3 or 4 needles was held in your armpit. I never did get the hang of that. I would like to see somebody do that. I bet I could on YouTube. I bet that's out there. Judy says, fast forward 10 years and we had moved back stateside. Life became busy and my knitting tapered off. Last year, I became intrigued with sock knitting, but knitting on circular needles felt so awkward and floppy after always having one needle held stationary. I was determined, though, and have fallen in love with knitting socks with magic loop. I still have my straight needles from Belgium, but more for sentimental reasons. She says, sometime could you make knitting styles like lever or cottage knitting the topic of the week? The Portuguese style has also fascinated me. Why in the world would you want to put the yarn around your neck? I have no idea. But then again, I suppose someone might wonder why in the world you might want to put a needle in your armpit. She says, thank you, Devin, for your channel. I look forward to watching it every week. It's like taking a course on the details of knitting and its history. Well, I apologize for it not being so much that this week, but I know you guys understand. And thank you so much for a wonderful story, Judy. That was so interesting. Like, I wish I could have been a little fly on the wall with you and Paula back in 1983. That would have been amazing. Yeah, just super, super cool. So thank you so much for joining me. Please go shop my shop update if you have time between now and Monday. You can pre-order a sweater quantity if you want, and I will get that out to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.